Question arises with the IDI and motivation about the difference between motivation being correlated with enjoyment in role or in a role versus effectiveness in a role. It's a great question and an important one when you're using the IDI in terms of really any sort of situation. But especially if you're using it in a selection context where effectiveness might be a question that the client or the organization is curious about. So a few things here. Absolutely, you can talk and use the IDI and motivation when you're thinking about enjoyment in role, right? Where is this person likely to derive energy and satisfaction within a particular role, right? And clearly, the more that you know about the role and the specifics of what it entails, the better you can likely determine whether or not this person is going to, be happy in the role. I think there's also ways of talking about leadership in general and where a person might appreciate certain aspects of leadership but not appreciate others. Right, you're gonna enjoy this part of leadership, but you might not enjoy this part quite as much, or vice versa, or whatever it might be. That's a much longer conversation, but it is one in terms of just the general requirements of leadership and where a person might enjoy it. You can't talk about effectiveness with the IDI. And very simply, what I will tell people is just because you have a certain profile does not mean you're going to be more or less effective in a particular role. We've done research on this, right? There's no correlation between a motivational profile and effectiveness in a variety of roles. So that's just important to note. And what I tell people, here's an example, just because you have a high score in maybe giving, right? Doesn't mean you're necessarily the most helpful person in the world, right? All it means is that you get satisfaction from doing it, but maybe you actually don't do it a lot, right? Or vice versa, right? You might be the most helpful person in the world, but you've got a low giving score, which indicates, yes, objectively and from a behavioral point of view, very helpful. In terms of it deriving a lot of satisfaction from it, not a lot, right? So it's very hard to talk about effectiveness based upon motivation. The last thing I'll say here, when I use the IDI in a selection context, the way that I will talk to clients or organizations about it is, this is who you are likely to have, right? Yes, the IDI has implications for who is likely to show up, right? What behaviors are they likely to demonstrate? But I will not go as far to say that they're going to be effective doing this or less effective doing that, because that's just too far of an inferential leap for me in the IDI. And again, I know that research which talks, which shows that there's just not a connection between motivation and effectiveness.